What's up, guys? Okay, we're gonna do a little mini recap of day one of UPW, and we left off at pages 13 and 14, and then it was done. So I took both of my books and kind of looked at the first UPW I went to and some of my notes, and then this UPW, and I also found that on both days I didn't have anything on page 13 with the keys to exceptional communication, but I think it's good for us to do a recap of what occurred in day one and kind of see how it all ties together. And then I also looked into day two, again, to kind of fit the missing pieces. But the coolest part about this, I think, is just going through the book and really starting to piece it together after UPW has already, ended, at least the immersion part of it, and how we've been priming, maybe not every day, but doing it and finding the different ways that we prime. Like really, guys, things are just starting to flow, and I'm really glad you're here and you're watching this. And I'm always encouraging you to kind of reply to the emails or send back something to the course and give your feedback on the stuff that we cover. So let's get into it. Let's get into the recap of day one, where when I looked at page 13, I was like, what's going on? And then he starts talking about fears and processing them on 14. So I needed a recap and a refresh. And when I go back to what is page 7 in our book, which is technically like the beginning of day one, I start to see where it all ties together. And he asks these 3 very important questions, right? What stops us from moving forward, from taking action, and from being our best? Which I can tell you I'm totally okay with being all of those things. And the answer to that was fear. So right then and there, I got my answer. Oh, so now I can see how the first second of day one and this last page of processing fears ties together, because the one thing that stops us, and I'm just reading my notes so I stay focused, the one thing that stops us from moving forward, taking action, being our best, is fear. And the first thing that came up for me, I was like, well, I remember 4 years ago saying, I'm not afraid of anything. And that is very surface level. Like deeper, once we start to get into the 6 human needs, we start to realize that we do fear things. And again, that fear is just we're not moving forward there, or we're not taking the risk or the action to go somewhere that is unknown to us. So I had always said, okay, fear must be like protective mode. I'm not afraid of anything. But as I dig deeper and I ask the question, what am I afraid of? He kind of also started to go in that into like you could be afraid of rejection. And that personally, when it comes to business, I don't know if anybody, I'm sure a lot of people watching this are in sales, but imagine how many times you don't go to call somebody or make a sales call or reach out to somebody because you're just afraid they're going to say no. That's the fear of rejection. That stops you from taking the action of making the call that would move you forward. I would imagine it's the same things in relationships. And I noticed a lot for me as going through this book, work and relationships came up a lot. And I think that's something that we can all pretty much relate to, in the sense of, I mean, not everybody, right? We all have some sort of interaction with people. Those are relationships. Even if it is, hold on one second, something weird is happening with my Zoom right now. And I'm sure we all have some level also, or some degree of work or tasks that need to be done. I'm trying to be very broad to the audience because I don't know who's listening to this. But it came up a lot for me, work and relationships. So he does go on to mention just some of the reasons for why people feel fear. They could even feel fearful of success, being that sometimes people associate success with losing other things, or maybe that success will mean, and we're going to talk about meaning today, having that success, I've heard this many times, might mean that if I have more money, I'm going to have more problems. If I have more money, more people are going to ask me. So that fear, because that's a fear right there, could even be stopping you from experiencing the success that you want. So he did talk about fears, and on that page 14, he's asking us to process our fears. So now's the time for you to pause this, because we're not live on this particular recording. Usually we are, but I had something come up tomorrow, so you guys are getting the pre-recorded version because I must stay accountable to moving forward in this book. What is your greatest fear? So now let's think about this. And I'm actually going to share mine with you only in hopes that it will trigger something for you to release. So 4 years ago, I had put down that I was afraid that I would not have freedom of time or leisure. So I was always afraid, like that was when I had quit my job. I was afraid that I guess I wouldn't have time to do the things that I wanted. And that's a very long story having to do with my mother passing away. I was afraid that I wouldn't have enough money to do the things that I want or to take care of problems as they arise, which is totally in the future. I was afraid of disaster happening, totally in the future, and not being able to quote unquote pay for it or quote unquote fix it. And I was afraid of getting sick, again, tied to experiences I had with my mother passing away from cancer. So I know where these are coming from, but I just want you to hear them. I want to share them with you in the event that it triggers some fears. So think about what is your greatest fear. For me right there, I was afraid of some future like illness or whatever happening, and then I would need massive amounts of money to get the best medical care possible out there. Very tied to a particular experience in my life. So think about yours right now. Pause me and think about it right now. Come back when you're ready. Number 2, he says, what benefit has this fear given you in the past? And that took a little time for me to dig, right? So when we are fearful or we're worried of something happening, it's causing us pain right now, but we'll get to that. But what it did give me that was a bonus or a benefit was the drive and the determination. It kept me very stable and increasing my income. I was always thinking of ways to make more money, even when I was a teacher. Right? Before my business, when I was a teacher, I would come up with ways to have groups of tutoring, and I would make thousands of dollars tutoring groups twice a week. And that was all out of fear. But that's a major perk from that fear of not having enough, right? Other major fears that we aren't enough, that we won't be loved. That's rejection. So what benefit has your fear, your greatest fear, given you in the past? Pause it, come back. Good. And now the last question on page 14 is, why should we be free of this fear now? So this was actually really hard for me to let go of, especially when it's tied to certainty and security, which I believe Tony always says, get in your head and you're dead. And if you're operating from a level of certainty, which we'll get into next, that you're kind of like screwed. But we all need each of the 6 human needs, but when we're operating from certainty, it makes life pretty difficult. Certainty and significance were my top ones, leading to stress and pain. There was somewhere where there was a great note on operating from certainty. Maybe it'll come up later. But now our question is, why should we be free of this fear now? And my answer was, just thinking about these fears in the future, my answer was because my present moment is perfect and healthy and problem-free, and I'm missing it. I'm missing the present, which is what I wanted, or I was afraid that something terrible was going to happen, and I was missing out on the fact that I didn't have it, and I was experiencing optimal everything now, so just by worrying about it. I also had said I should be free of this fear right now because since it was ruining totally stressing me out, I have the drive, I have the stability, I have the determination. It's already there. It's not going anywhere. That's what I had said. And it's stressing me out now. So that's why I wanted to release it right now. I did get very motivated to do that. And then maybe 6 months to a year after my first UPW, I did Date with Destiny, which is where I really released a lot of stuff. And that's where Tony Robbins has us do our new primary question. So take this time now to pause and answer your reasons for why should we be free of this fear now. And then come back. And now that you're back, I want to, again, we just did that page 14, so we're done and we're up to day 2. But looking at page 13, I really tried to understand why 2 UPWs in a row I had no notes for it. So I dug, I researched, because that's what I do, right? Nerd glasses on. I love being a nerd. It's a very positive, it's the positive meaning that I'm giving it. We'll talk about meaning in a second. Because he does say the 2 keys to exceptional communication One, the quality of my life is the quality of my communication. And I really thought it was emotions. But then number two, he says, nothing in life has any meaning except for the meaning I give it. And what I want to review here and just submit to us all here is just, again, going back to how to determine the quality of our life, how to increase the quality of our life. And that brought me back to page 8 in the book and Googling. Because I was like, okay, let's talk about communication. And all I could find, Tony Robbins talking about communication and the 3 forms of it, were on influencing people and building rapport, which I know anybody can use, whether it's in your relationship or for your children or for your friends or for your business or for your workplace. Anybody can use exceptional communication tools. And he didn't go very deep into it, so it seems, in day 1 of UPW. But the cool part that he mentioned was, and this is where I'm going to go back, right? So page 8 I'm going to go to, but I'm still on page 13 just to kind of cross it off. When we talk about the 3 forms of communication and how words represent 7% of what actually influences human behavior, voice quality made me think of when we say our affirmations, or as Tony calls them, incantations, right? And he would have us, now I am the voice, and he would have us say it in different ways. Now I am the voice. Now I am the voice, like all different ways, right? So voice qualities, how you use your voice, how loud, how low, how soft, all that stuff. And then your physiology. Physiology was actually the most, let me see, 3 forms of communication. The way you use your body represents the majority of what actually influences people when you communicate. So I was like, where are you going with this, dude? Like, what are we talking about, these 3 forms of communication, words and voice and physiology? And then I'm like, kind of sounds a little bit like the triad, because I know that he does talk a lot about mastering influence, getting leverage and helping people with their problems. And then I said, could we possibly utilize this for our own incantations and affirmations? Maybe, right? Physiology, okay, language, meaning. So I go back now to page 8. That was on page 13. Now I go back to page 8. And sure enough, right, like going through the beginning of day 1, what controls and determines the quality of our lives? We're going back to meaning, the meaning that we give things, right? So meaning and language are the same. So if I am unable to do our live call tomorrow at Thursday, tomorrow night, I can either give that meaning of like, oh my God, I'm so scatterbrains. Like, why can't I just stick with one schedule? And this is so annoying that this popped up. This is so, or I can give it the meaning of, this popped up for a reason. I know that life happens for me, not to me. Let me see how I can go with the flow and still deliver, value and stay like accountable to all of us moving forward and reviewing this book and growing as individuals, because that's one of the 6 human needs that we are being taught by Tony Robbins to operate from as much as we possibly can, from growth and contribution. And I think this is a way of us doing that. I think how we all show up in that UPW Facebook group and all that we give is really a way of us operating from those 2 higher spiritual needs, which I'm going to get into next. But I can't say I digress, but I'm definitely going off on a tangent. But my point is exactly that. What meaning do you give things? Right? So if that meaning is also going to elicit an emotion, which I'm trying to tie this in, and we need to influence ourselves. We want to be aware of our emotions and the language that we use and the meaning that we give things. So we already reviewed page 8 together, but one of the things that I was reminded of again is page 8, second paragraph, once meaning, why do I keep saying once? Once meaning is established, each individual will have a pattern of emotions. And our emotions are controlling our life because they control our actions, okay? So the individual have a pattern of emotions they associate to this meaning as their natural way of coping. For example, if one person feels that someone has verbally abused or humiliating them, they may strike back with physical violence. Someone else may believe that it's important to save face by pretending the attack had no impact whatsoever. Another person may respond to the same situation by trying to hide and protect themselves to avoid the situation at all costs. The variety of meanings and emotions people can generate is unlimited. The cool part is that we really do get to sit back, reflect, and choose, right? So Tony says that all of the meanings we give things are driven by our patterns of emotion. And since we all have patterns of emotion, we should be focused on interrupting the pattern when it's not serving us. That's what I think right there. So he did speak about going to our emotional home and all that good stuff, but I would really rather us focus on the triad, because I also saw a girl I see several people in the Facebook group, and myself included, that I think 4 years into this, I can't say I'm perfectly primed and have my brain trained, that when I go to a crappy place, I think if I'm placing the control outside of me, it puts me into a really crappy place. And that's where a lot of times that I've been saying for this particular unit, I've been going a lot to work and to relationships, because I can't control that. I can't control what the other person does. Are my issues popping up here? I know I'm not the only one, so it's okay. I'm okay with it. And again, I share these things in the event that you can relate and it serves you, and we all get to release it together. So if we go back to this triad and focus on, okay, the molders of meaning, what makes emotion, what starts a pattern, and when we notice the pattern is going boop, right, which forms our beliefs, because when we're certain about something, our beliefs are there. When the pattern's going like this, we want to interrupt the pattern. All right, so 3 ways we can interrupt the pattern. Number 1, there's a pattern of physiology. How are you using your physical body, breath, posture, movement? If you all of a sudden, answering this girl's question in the UPW group, if you all of a sudden are starting to feel like, I'm noticing I'm getting sad again, change your physiology right now. Change it right now. Change your state, your breath, what's your breathing doing, what's your posture, what's your movement doing, change it. First thing I always do is, yes, right? Chest goes out, shoulders go back, stand up straight. Sometimes I even stand, sometimes jump up and down. You gotta move, change everything, right? That's the first thing. Second thing is your pattern of focus. I have written on my mirror, because like maybe a couple weeks ago, I was very just cranky about some stuff and being very negative about some stuff. And I remember listening to the Tony Robbins, the YouTube videos, because that's pretty quick. That's a quick fix. These will be a quick fix for you as well, especially if you want to do the book with it. It says, what's great about right now? Where do I want to shift my focus right now? What's great about right now? Right? So you want to shift your focus. Whatever you focus on is what you're going to feel. Your focus creates a different feeling. So that's where in Date with Destiny, he has us asking these questions that really we're changing our state. You ask a better quality of question, you get a better quality of answer. So when we notice that our pattern or our emotion, again, is going, it's not feeling good, maybe we feel sad, maybe we feel angry, but it's not the state that we want to live in, right? I noticed somebody just the other day said, I want to live in a level 10 every day, right? Like UPW, Tony Robbins, every day. I wish. So if I wish, I mean, it is definitely possible, because if that's what I really want, to live like that 24/7. I mean, because let's be real, if that's what I really want, then I could do it. I could shift like right now, right? I could change. We could do sad. That's what he said. He said you could do pissed off. You can't be pissed off, but you could do pissed off. You could do sad. You could do happy. You could do whatever you want, but like, we don't have to necessarily be it, because that's the pattern. You want to interrupt that pattern. I like that. I have some other like affirmations that I wrote in there. And again, it's all of the feelings that you want. So 4 years ago, I am free, I am secure, I am healthy, I am playful, because I was a workaholic. I still kind of am a workaholic, but I really enjoy what I do. I am learning, I am loved. So those are all feelings that you probably want to move towards, right? How can I feel more free? So whatever you want to feel, you can ask those questions. That was a big thing in Date with Destiny. How can I feel more free? How can I feel more secure? And that takes us into the human needs. But before I do the human needs, let me just finish the last force of the triad. So the triad we had, a pattern of physiology, changing your physiology, your body, your breathing, your movement, changing your focus. Whatever you focus on is what you'll feel. And then that pattern of language and meaning. The second that we put words to an experience, it changes the meaning that we experience. So again, tomorrow night, I could look at it as a disaster and annoying, or I could look at it as an opportunity to do X, Y, Z and still, have my evening to do what needs to be done, but still get this and still learn. And this is great because I'm doing, I got to review the book. I got the notes. This is good. This is inside me. I'm giving it away. This is great. Okay. Not everybody would give it that meaning. Some people would give it a better meaning. Some people would give it a worse meaning. And when I say better, just meaning feels better. And when I say worse, I just mean elicits a negative emotion. That's all, right? We really can't label or define that necessarily, kind of, right? So when we have those molders of meaning, and I just want to make sure that we talk about language, meaning, emotion, life, how we live, Tony really encourages us to become a master of meaning. So I always say, begin to pay attention to our words. And I think probably the areas that are the most difficult for me are in relationships, because again, there's another individual in play there, right? So if I were to become a master of meaning in my relationships, your work day, your health, your finances, right? Because once there's a meaning established, those patterns of emotions come. Once the emotions are come, which are driven by the triad, the physiology, the focus, the meaning, once those patterns come, that's the state you live in. That affects your outcome because it affects your actions. See how this is all intertwined in this day one, and why I'm so glad we're doing this? Because really by studying it, it just starts to make more sense and can be applied to our lives. I did mention, and I guess I forgot to mention this too, talking about fear a little bit more. He did also mention to dance with the fear so it doesn't control you, as opposed to if you're pushing against fear, anything you push up against, if you walk up to somebody and be like, hold your hands up, and you put your hand up to their hands and start pushing, they're probably going to push back. So he had said that fear will never, ever, ever go away. Even if you get over one fear, you are constantly evolving and growing. Fear will never go away. We just have to learn how to dance with it. And he does something where he gets on the stage and he does a dance, usually with a dude, or maybe even a child. I don't know, but I think it's always a guy he chooses to dance with, because the guy will push back, and then instead he just kind of starts to dance with them, right? Much more eloquent and fun than watching the struggle. That's fear. So let's cover this last, and then let's wrap up day one and celebrate and be super excited that we made it through all of day one. This is incredible. We're moving forward. I feel when did we do UPW? Maybe a month ago? Feels like forever ago. I just want to go back. I want to go back. Why are we addicted to problems? Ooh, okay, good. So definitely worth just reviewing the 6 human needs, right? There's 4 primal needs, 2 spiritual needs. Understanding the human needs and just the fact that we need them all. Everybody needs the human needs, but he says that we value 2 in particular more than others. And it's pretty common for people to value certainty, because we all need certainty at some level, but some people, still to this day, being financially stable, feeling financially stable is very important to me. And I think last week I was mentioning that I had a conversation with my friend, I think I did, in how we value financial security completely differently, or how we achieve financial security, what vehicle we use for that financial certainty, security do we use. So there are those 4 primal needs, right? Certainty, uncertainty or variety, love and connection. And then the opposite of loving someone else and connecting with someone else would be, the opposite is it's all about me, me, me. So that's significance, right? So love and connection, significance, and then growth and contribution. Those are the 2 spiritual needs, the last 2, growth and contribution. He goes on to mention that why do we do what we do? Constantly looking to avoid pain. The brain is always looking for pleasure or to avoid pain, constantly, 24/7. So people do what they do in order to meet their needs. And if you are valuing certainty and significance over contribution and love and connection, you're going to be a pretty different individual, I would say. So he does talk about that. That was probably the hardest concept for me to grasp 4 years ago. And I remember going to UPW and just being like, this is crazy. Like, what are the needs again? I'm so confused. Hold on, I don't understand. And then I went to Date with Destiny, and it was like, okay, I'm starting to get the hang of it. And then Life and Wealth Mastery. All right, okay, I get it. I get the human needs. I think it's really worthwhile for us to look at our actions throughout the day. And this is how I would study it, and say, like, what need am I meeting right now by doing this? And I used the example last week. Again, for us to be in this, you know, for me even to put the emails together and to take the time and do that, what needs is it meeting? To me, I think for sure, and Tony also says that if an action that you do is meeting 3 or more of the basic human needs, then it becomes an addiction. I do think that this meets the need of contribution, because I feel like I'm doing this. This is great. I'm giving this to people. Contribution. That's a strong one. Growth. I'm growing as I do this, and I know other people are growing as they do this. Connection and love. 500% happens on these calls and on these recordings. I get the most incredible emails from you guys. And even being in that group, we connect by commenting and asking questions and all that stuff. Significance. I am going to be very honest with this. I am certainty, right? That this has to give me some level of significance as, I guess, the person who's leading it. It must, right? It must make me feel special or important in some particular way, or needed maybe. It has to. Uncertainty, variety, sure, you never know how it's going to go. I'm learning something new. That's exciting. And then, of course, certainty. I personally think that for me, when it comes to certainty and these types of things, I know the feeling that it gives me when I read these books, when I learn this stuff, when I teach it to people. So I think that's where it gives me the feeling of certainty. Definitely something to be explored further. Definitely something to go on and YouTube and hear other stories of how people meet these needs, because we can change the vehicle that we get them in, right? What was the one? Significance. I think Tony tells the story about how people holding a gun to somebody's head can make them feel significant. I wouldn't do that. This is probably a much more positive way of getting significance. If this is a way that I meet that need. So how do we meet these needs? And I want you to think about just some of the things that go on a daily basis, that just ask yourself, what needs are these meeting? What needs are, did I say that right? What needs are meeting these actions? Maybe that's what I wanted to say. What needs are these actions meeting? Why am I having such a brain fart right now with what I'm saying? What needs are these actions meeting? How am I meeting the need of certainty? You can ask that. That's one way of asking it. How am I meeting? And he asks you that in page 11. What are the ways you get certainty, uncertainty, all of that stuff? Go over that again if you feel, it would be beneficial for you. But I guess I'm kind of reverse engineering it and saying, instead of looking at the needs and how do you achieve it, what's the vehicle you use? Remember, for me, list making gave me a sense of certainty. Reading devotionals gave me a sense of certainty. And I'm sure love and connection and growth, sure, uncertainty, significance, maybe you feel special, you're a child of God. If the way you meet your needs doesn't serve you, you must find another way. So that's what I said. I said, instead of saying, oh, here's certainty, how do I meet that? Instead, I'm going to suggest that we take an action such as, what did you do right before this? You watched this. What are you about to do after? Which 1 to 6 needs does it fulfill, right? When you go out at night, when you hang out with your friends, when you take a drink, when you go to work, when you have arguments, when you travel, all of these things that you do, what needs do they meet? So I'm flipping the script a little bit from the book because we already did the book, but that's how I started to understand the human needs, was to say, well, this is interesting. I do this a lot. I wonder what need that's meeting. And then that for me was how I was able to change it. Oh, there's one more page of notes, but I think I covered it already. Yep, I did, because I said he goes into, so that's the 6 human needs. That's the challenge or the task that I am kind of, submitting to you. When he goes into communication, I just think maybe it has to do with influencing ourselves, and then of course also improving the quality of our life by improving the quality of our relationships and positively influencing people. He does go into key beliefs, and again, what is a belief? A belief is you are certain about the meaning that you give something. So you believe it to be true. I'm trying to think of what are some beliefs. A lot of, the first one that comes to my head, because I was just listening to a manifestation meditation on abundance or something, and the one guy says, many people believe that it's hard to make money. That's a very common belief. It's hard to make money. There are lots of people that literally, you can talk to them and they're just like, making money is easy. So that's an example of a belief you are certain about. It's just something that you believe. Some people believe certain things about their body, believe things about what they're capable of, believe things about other people. It's just when you say things are the way they are, those are your beliefs. And since it's a belief, right? I don't think we can necessarily say that we want those things to change. I think it's us that has to change our beliefs, the meaning that we give things, and the language, right? In order for things to change, you must change. So I think it's all gonna happen in here. I know. He says psychology is 80% of your results. So if life is happening for you, not to you, we are going to become masters of meaning and our emotions and the quality of our life by changing our focus, right? Look for what's right. Shift your focus towards what you want by changing the meaning and the language that we use about things, and by changing our physiology. Right there. Okay, so that's it. We're done for day 1. I know that day 2 he goes into, I think he starts going into changing these patterns, right? Neuroassociative conditioning, memory files, lasting change, driving forces. Whoa. 5 to thrive, asking intelligently. Day 2 is going to be a good one. And I was considering going into day 4 today as opposed, because I would like people to discuss. I see so many of us making health changes. I would like to also have the health in there, because first part of the book says without your health you have nothing, and I believe that to be true. So you have the choice to dip into one of the recordings from day 4, or maybe it'll just be a natural pattern for you and you do that. But I definitely want you to enjoy, to think of these things, absorb these things, and post them in the group and send emails and love and all good stuff, and go prime. Somebody was asking me today about how do I prime? And I said, sometimes it just happens very quickly. Like, I think the important part is the breathing. And we can do 30 breaths real quick, right? Of the 30. Focusing on something I feel very grateful for and really, really like feeling it. Doing the thing that I call the God scan, right? Where I just imagine this channel of energy running through my body, through my feet, into the center of the earth. It's swirling. I pull it back up when it shoots. And every time it goes up and down, I do healing, strengthening, solving, serving. And the serving actually also comes out of my heart. And I do, again, anybody else who needs healing, heal my body so I can heal others. Strengthen my body so other, like the good things that need to be strengthened can be strengthened. I'm just imagining the light kind of go like up and down. Heal, strength, solve any issues that are going on mentally, physically, so I can do that for others. Serve, heal, strength, solve, serve. It's harder when you're teaching it, huh? And you're kind of like doing it and teaching it. thank you for serving me, whatever comes to your mind, this and that, so allow me to serve others, and celebrate. And then you do the achievements, and I really like to feel the things that I want and just get playful with it and imagine, oh my God, can you imagine what that would be like? That'd be pretty cool. How would I feel? How would I stand? What would I say? What would other people say? Like, people would be patting me on the back, stuff like that. Okay, that's priming. Priming doesn't have to be any strict, rigid procedure unless you are operating from massive certainty for that. For me, I'm starting to like some variety in my priming. So that's it. That's me. That's Linda, honey. She's the coolest plant you'll ever meet, with like the longest. Look at this. They're so long. She's so cool. I love her. She loves you too. Sorry this one in particular couldn't be live when we were doing them live, but this is much better than canceling. So I love you guys. Hit me up with some good stuff, and have a fabulous week. I'll see you in 2. Bye.